This is section 3.1. This is part 3. All we're going to talk about here are the basics of the grid that we graph on. This is called the rectangular coordinate system. It's sometimes called the Cartesian coordinate system. There are other kinds that you learn in pre-cal, but for right now, this is what we're doing. Okay, so you probably remember some of this. You might not remember all of this. This is a lot of terminology, a lot of definitions, a lot of everything, okay? First of all, the horizontal one. This is called your x-axis. The vertical one is your y-axis, okay? For the x-axis, this is really just a number line. Your negative numbers are in this direction. Your positive numbers are in this direction. The y-axis is also a number line, and they cross at 0. Your negative numbers are in the bottom, and your positive numbers are up top. Okay, the point where the two axes cross, it has a special name. It's called the origin. Origin, okay? It's very naturally broken up into 4 pieces. Each of these 4 pieces is called a quadrant. Okay, quad meaning 4. Now, I don't know why this notation was chosen. I do not know why somebody made these decisions, but here's how they go. This quadrant is called quadrant 1. We use Roman numerals, quadrant 1. I do not know why we go counterclockwise, but we do. This quadrant is quadrant 2. Again, Roman numerals. This one is quadrant 3. This one is quadrant 4. Okay. Now, what we're going to be doing a lot of is we are going to be plotting some points. Now, how do these work? If you've ever played the game Battleship, where you put your little ships on a grid and you try to guess where somebody else's are, they have numbers on one side and letters on the other. I can't remember if the numbers are on the top or the numbers or letters are on the top, but it doesn't matter. You line them up and you would say, okay, you would guess A5, and you'd line up A and you'd line up 5, and you'd be talking about that particular position. This works pretty much the same way. You have an ordered pair. Let's talk about 1, 3. This means your point that we're going to put somewhere on this grid lines up with x1, where x is 1. X is 1 right here. Your positive numbers are here. This is 0. Okay. It lines up with 1 on the x-axis, and it lines up with 3 on the y-axis. If this is 1, this would be 2, 3. This is 1, 2, 3. So the point that lines up with 1 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis is right there. Okay. Let's try plotting the point -2, 4. That means my point, lines up with -2 on the x-axis and +4 on the y-axis. Well, my negative numbers are in this direction, so this would be -1, -2, -3, and so on. All right, so if I'm supposed to line up with -2 on the x, so that's somewhere right here, and +4 on the y, that's here. Where do they line up? Right here. Okay, so if I were to plot -1, -5. -1 needs to line up with -1 on the x and -5 on the y. So this would be -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is -5. I don't want to put all the numbers on here. It's going to get too crowded to see anything. So if I were to line up with -1 on the x and -5 on the y, that would direct me to this point right here. Okay. Let's look at the point 0, 6. I'm supposed to line up with 0 on the x-axis and 6 on the y-axis. Well, 0 on the x-axis is right here. 6 on the y, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It puts it directly on the y-axis. Sorry, I'm off the screen. Okay, so 0 on the x-axis, 6 on the y. Now let's reverse this. Let's do 6, 0. So this time, my point is supposed to line up with 6 on the x-axis and 0 on the y. Well, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is here. It's supposed to line up with 6 on the x and 0 on the y. That puts this one directly on the x-axis. Okay, so you're going to have some problems where you're asked to plot some points. You're going to have some where they give you a point and they ask you to give its coordinates. Let's do that. This would be, where does it line up on the x? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It lines up with 9 on the x. And what does it line up with on the y? -1. So you'll have some where you have to identify the point, some you have to plot the point. You will also have some problems where they give you points on a grid and they ask you what quadrant it's in. Some of these may feel a little bit tricky. If you remember the order and it's broken up into 4 pieces, it's fairly easy to look at this and say, okay, that's quadrant 2. That one's in quadrant 3, so on. What might mess you up is this point right here and this point right here. Because it's hard to say. You look at this and go, well, it's kind of in quadrant 1, it's kind of in quadrant 2, what do I put? You're going to have 5 options, not 4. Your options are going to be quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, and no quadrant. If your point is on an axis line, this is in no quadrant. And that right there is a cursive Q. It's not some weird 8 symbol, it's a cursive Q. Okay? This is the end of 3.1.